Test, test. Okay, we're going to get started in just a minute. Good evening. On behalf of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, I'd like to welcome you to the 8th Annual Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony. My name is Steve Lotch, and I'm the very proud Superintendent of Saline Area Schools. Tonight, it's my pleasure to serve as your Master of Ceremonies. One of the most enjoyable parts of the Hall of Fame weekend is the opportunity to see and catch up with people we haven't seen in quite some time, such as former teachers, students, and co-workers. Tonight, we're fortunate to have a number of previous Hall of Fame inductees with us. Would all previously inducted Hall of Fame members please stand if you're able? Let's give them a hand. And before we begin tonight's ceremony, we'd like to pause for a moment to recognize Annhurst Kreitz, the former Executive Director of Foundation for Saline Area Schools, who is pursuing other job opportunities but has been leadership for the past several years and has done a very good job. She's continued to help the foundation grow and thrive. Annhurst, on behalf of the faculty and staff, but most importantly on behalf of the students who benefited from your leadership, thank you. We are also very thankful to have Stacy Rumsa now leading the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, and we welcome her aboard. This weekend and much of the Foundation's good work is made possible by Foundation sponsors such as Kelly Orthodontics, Max Acadian Seafood Shack, New Foundry, Promanus, Qualutions, SBK Orthodontics, and True Community. Let's give these incredible sponsors a round of applause as well. And now for the Hall of Fame. A little over 8 years ago, the Foundation's Alumni Committee began discussing ways to honor those who have demonstrated outstanding individual ability, leadership character, personal drive, and dedication. In short, we sought individuals whose lives and accomplishments have inspired and impacted our students in the Saline community. Now that we're inducting the 9th Hall of Fame classes, the common traits among the inductees continues to be evident. While all have a talent of one form or another, I believe the two truly defining characteristics they all possess are a passion for excellence and for serving others. As we introduce the 2022 class of the Hall of Fame, I am confident that you too will find these individuals more than deserving of the recognition that they are receiving. We're going to start with Mac Danforth, a 1956 graduate of Ann Arbor High School. Mac attended the University of Michigan, receiving his BA and MA. A proud Marine, Mac started his musical career off in 1961 with a bang, embarking on a 15-week, 72-concert tour, which included performances in the USSR and its satellite countries, as well as a number of performances in the Near East. In 1966, Mac came to Saline and served as the band director from 1966 to 1978. During his time in Saline, the music program experienced unprecedented growth, and in terms of participation as well as quality. It's my pleasure to introduce Malcolm Mac Danforth, a Distinguished Educator Hall of Fame inductee.
Thank you, sir. Lots of memories. I taught for 42 years total, but the first 12 were here at Saline. And actually, I thank my colleague sitting next to me for getting me this job. I was walking across campus working on my master's degree. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I figured it's been a while since I had anything to do with music, so I thought I'd better go back to school for a year. Walking across campus, somebody said, well, hey, there's a job open in Saline. So I knew that Dave was here, and so I called him up, and rest is history, as they always say. But memories. I think of all the wonderful kids that I worked with here, some of whom are in the audience now. And the memories include 3 post-game shows for the Michigan Band Day with our marching band here. And the most important one, of course, is the fact that I met the woman who was eventually going to become my wife, my darling wife, Kay. She was a student teacher for me in 1977. And we went our separate ways, and a few years later, our paths crossed at a band conductors conference, and even us old guys get lucky once in a while. So I'm very grateful for the 12 years I had here. The memories probably are my fondest memories of the 42 years that I taught. I miss kids. I don't miss a lot of the other stuff, but I miss the kids. And I actually wish I was still teaching, but circumstances are such that I can't do that anymore. So I'm very grateful to be here tonight for the recognition, and glad that I could contribute to the band program here once upon a time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Matt. Next we have David Helmer, a 1993 graduate of Saline High School. David graduated from Eastern Michigan University and the Missouri Auction School. A professional auctioneer, David is the co-founder of Braun and Helmer Auction Service, the co-founder of GoToAuction.com, and the founder of Super Auction. In 2008, he was the winner of the Michigan Ringman Championship. In 2014, he received his industry's highest honor, being elected into the Michigan Auctioneers Association Hall of Fame. In 2017, he received the distinct honor of being awarded the President's Award of Distinction. It's my honor to introduce to you distinguished alumni David Helmer.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I've got kind of a wing-ding-dilly here. I wrote quite a bit, and I'm going to just talk faster because that's what I do for a living. All right. I'm very thankful to be inducted into the Foundation for Saline Area Schools Hall of Fame. I do want to thank a lot of people. I've had a lot of people give me a lot of help over the years. I want to thank the Lord first, who's given me life, peace, and wisdom. Oh, I usually cry when I talk. I'm probably not going to tonight, but it happens very often. My parents, Yuri and Ruth Ann, who taught me hard work and supported me in all my endeavors, who are here. I want to introduce my wonderful wife, Jennifer Helmer, Jennifer is, besides being the mother of our 3 children, has supported me in all the things I've done. My wonderful daughter Olivia is here. She's back from University of Alabama. She's a sophomore there and a Saline High School graduate. My twins are juniors at the high school. I have Caleb, who does baseball and tennis here, and my other twin, Luke. He does rock and roll and lacrosse. But anyway, here we go. I must have left a big wake in my path, because every school that I attended in the Saline district, they either tore down or completely remodeled the day I left. And that's a fact. I am a proud Jensen Jet, okay? Here's my teachers, K through 6. Todd, Taylor, Kruger, Cy, Donaldson, Ulrich, and 6th grade Mrs. Peterson. So I had a good start. There was some tough teachers in there who taught me a lot. Mrs. Forster was our music teacher, and I think many of you remember her. She sort of expanded my brain a little bit. Does everybody remember like ta, ta, ti, ta, and all these things? And we would get on the floor underneath our desks, and we'd listen to Dance Macabre, and it was pretty amazing. But besides liking Mrs. Forster a lot, I did want to apologize to her. In one of my few rebellious moments in life, during one of the recitals, the 3rd graders were doing a jump rope routine to the Ghostbusters, and we were told emphatically not to sing along with that hit song, but we couldn't help it. When it came on, we all yelled out, "Who you going to call? Ghostbusters." So I'm sorry, Miss Donaldson. In middle school, I had great teachers like Mrs. Crowley, Mr. McNutt, Coach Dave Mann. I had Mr. Koppelman, who never threw an eraser at me, but did get me for 20 push-ups for leaving my shoes out after a basketball game overnight. I had to do 20 to get them back. Middle school was the time I started to realize that teachers had a little bit more to them than meets their eye. I had Mr. King for 8th grade history. I quickly realized he was smart, passionate, and wanted the students to give a little more effort than they were used to giving. Well, in that class, we wrote an essay that was put on by the Daughters of the American Revolution. And I wrote it about Mr. King. And it won for our grade. And little did I know, 30 years later, we did an auction for Mr. King, Mr. Titus King. He's got a cool Bible name. He said, I stressed out over you more than any student I've ever had. And I said, hold on. I said, what? So here's something. When Mr. King, who many of you probably know, told me that he was a conscientious objector and a pacifist. And that when I won that award, they wanted to give him an award because I wrote it about him. And he said that he prayed, fasted, and suffered for a week to whether he should accept this award from a military institution. And he finally decided that it was an honor and accepted the award. And like I said, that's when I started realizing there was a little bit more to these teachers than you first hear about. When I get into high school, I had great teachers like Mr. Johnson, Coach Raff, Coach Crabtree, Coach Gall, Mrs. Thomas, Mrs. White, Ms. Tatar, Mr. Cameron, and my favorite and my dear friend, Mrs. Heft. Get ready, Mrs. Heft, because here we go. I had home economics and single survivor and became involved in FHA. Because of Mrs. Heft, I traveled to Chicago, Minnesota, Kalamazoo. I learned parliamentary procedure, how to conduct a job interview, which I won a national championship for, and leadership. When I was a sophomore, I was assigned with another parent the head of parking for the craft show. I did not know what utter chaos which was about to erupt. We had 80 handicapped spots on the west side of the old high school, and those filled up in 5 minutes. The high school filled up in 15, the middle school, and across the street within an hour. So people had to go to the Ford plant and take a shuttle. One of the parents, who was somebody I knew went to school with, cussed me out and said she just had a hysterectomy and I needed to find her a spot. I had a walkie-talkie that went directly to Mrs. Heft. And so the following is a short dramatic reading of what took place. Beep, Mrs. Heft, the handicap spots are full. Mrs. Heft, okay, we'll send them to the middle school, have them take the bus. They don't want to do that. Okay, well that's the only spot for them. People are swearing and yelling at me. Okay, well get them parked. Some lady had a hysterectomy and is real mad. And this is Mrs. Heft. David, when you agree to do something, you need to take on all parts of that project. You need to be a leader, and you need to make decisions on the spot. While I was contemplating this, another beep came over the walkie-talkie, and picture Brando from Godfather. This is Mrs. Heft. David, do not beep my walkie-talkie again. I have a lot going on here, too. From that point on, and I mean it, in life I realized I was going to be the guy hauling the wagon and doing the heavy lifting. I did want to give a couple shout-outs. We got a little bit to go here, but shout-outs to the Thalens, who's Nancy's Hall of Famer, Debbie Williams-Hoke, who's a Hall of Famer, because they do the same thing that I do. I always see them doing that hard work, picking up the heavy end, and putting in that extra effort. I'm not quite done with Mrs. Heff, though. We were in 2 serious arguments in our life, and we were tied at 1 apiece. She made the audacious claim that biscuits should not have any taste and the flavor should only come from butter. I said that Bob Evans biscuits taste great. This is in 10th grade, by the way, without butter. And she replied, that's because they already have a lot of butter in them. So that was 1 for Mrs. Heft. But then she tried to deny that she dressed up like MC Hammer and did a dance routine at her state convention in Kalamazoo to the song, You Can't Touch This. She was adamant this didn't happen, and I was able to produce photographic evidence to the contrary, so that's 1 for me. We're tied 1-1. I'm honored to be in the Foundation for Saline Area Schools Hall of Fame with so many people that played a role in my life. Good people that are here like Mr. Corona, Mr. Tebow, Mr. Wolters, my classmates Jessica Ping, Amy Moore, Sam Schwartz. Also good friends like Roy Palmieri Sr., Jim Heff, Sandy Nadig, and Taylor Jacobson, all who were parts of my life. I want a special thank you to Ann Kreitz for all her hard work, her dedication, and putting all this in motion, and to yesterday's administration and Hall of Fame members, including Kurt Ellis, Betsy Marl, Dr. Latch, Sue Corcoran, I think I got that right, Stacy Rumpkin, our new leader, and for such a great night. I do have some advice for the Hornet Nation, and that is get involved, make friends outside your circle, repay unkindness with kindness, and that's all. God bless.
Thank you, David. Ruby Cool. Ruby started her career in 1959 as a 4th grade teacher at Saline Elementary School, and her passion for educating children and investing in the community led her to serve in varying roles throughout her career. In 1963, Ruby accepted the position of assistant principal of Saline Elementary School. In 1966, she moved to Jensen Elementary School, where she served as principal for 3 years. During her time at Jensen, Ruby passionately supported the development of the Title I reading program, collecting hundreds of magazines and paperback books to provide to students in the program. In 1969, Ruby took a new role as assistant principal at Houghton School, where she stayed until resigning to stay home with her family. Please allow me to introduce to you distinguished educator Ruby Cool, and Catherine, Ruby's granddaughter, is going to bring Ruby to the microphone.
I'm supposed to keep saying something, and I'm not just sure what I'm supposed to say, but I'm glad to see all of you here, and I've been very fortunate to live in this area.
Okay, and I am Catherine. I am Ruby's granddaughter, and over the time when I started figuring out everything Grandma did, a lot of research, we had kind of talked about a few things that were important to her, things that she wanted everyone to know about. So these are some of Ruby Cool quotes. I've had some wonderful students. Kids are so interesting. They take care of each other, and they care about each other too. Be kind to each other and take care of each other. Love children and willing to help them when needed. And that was, she said, was important for anyone going into the educational system. And I said, how was it to be in charge? And she said, love what you do. And then she also famously says, I've never worked a day in my life. So I asked her too, I said, how early should you start working on getting good grades for college? And she says, as soon as you can. So those are some of Grandma's words, and we really appreciate everything about her, and we loved and really, really appreciate this on her behalf. And it was a really good involvement for us as a family to really understand all of Grandma's achievements. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer and Ruby. Terry Walters, a 1967 graduate of Michigan State University. Terry was hired in 1977 by the Saline area schools as Saline Middle School Assistant Principal. During his tenure at Saline, he held various administrative positions, which included Middle School Assistant Principal, Union School Principal, 6th grade Principal, High School Assistant Principal, and Assistant Superintendent of Instruction. When principal at Union School, with the support of the 6th grade teachers, Terry started the 6th grade Toronto trip, which continues to occur after more than 35 years. It's my pleasure to introduce to you distinguished educator and longtime friend, Terry Walters.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Kurt said the other day that we're supposed to thank those that helped along the way, so be with me. I have 247 people to thank. I want to, first of all, thank the foundation for this recognition. What I like is the class of 2022, these administrators, teachers, and students I've worked with or been around when they've been here. Ruby was retired, and she came to Union School as principal with her daughter Jean and always helped out any way she could. So she put in a lot of time after she retired, so I thank her for that. I was a liaison for the foundation when I was assistant superintendent, so I know what it involves. But when I started out when the foundation started out, and we were just doing small grants, and most of our funding came from the staff, some of the parents, some community members. So it wasn't that much. So I want to thank people that were in charge of the foundation, like Cheryl Heft and Ann Hurst-Kreitz, the executive director, for the way you've expanded the foundation and everything you do for the schools, students, and teachers. It's amazing how that has increased over the years. I want to give a little history about how I got to Saline. In the summer of 1977, since I'd been a half-time assistant principal in Wiley and Dexter, I wanted to become a full-time administrator. So I interviewed for 3 positions that summer. The first one was in Suttons Bay, north of Traverse City. I went for an interview. It was a middle school principal. They noticed when they told me the salary that I had a blank look on my face. And they said, "We realize it's a lot less than you were making in Dexter, but you need to realize our staff is going to build your house for you, and we're going to let you trap furs in the winter." They didn't know I was a hunter, not a hunter. My second interview was in Martin, Michigan, near Kalamazoo. That was for a middle school principal, athletic director. In the interview, they made it known that there was one thing they wanted me to do. I was to fire the football coach who had been there 21 years. That was scary. It was interesting. 5 years later, I ran into somebody and I said, "Can you tell me what happened in Martin, Michigan?" They said, "Yeah, the athletic director was fired 3 years later and the football coach is still there." The last position was in Saline for assistant principal. I interviewed with Joe Schwartz, and then I had to go to the superintendent, Harold Hintz. It was a little frightening, intimidating, because after 10 years, I didn't know what they were going to ask me. Mr. Hintz asked me one question: "Why would you want to come to Saline?" I don't know what I said, but I did get the job, and I took it. I want to say that that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made in my life because I've enjoyed the 28 years in Saline, and I've enjoyed the 5 positions and the 5 locations I've worked at. I'm going to explain 4 reasons why I've enjoyed Saline. The first is the staff. I don't care which building I went to or what I was involved in, the staff, I could tell, were committed to education and to the students. I enjoyed every different staff I had. And at the end, as an associate superintendent, I was working with all the staff. I really enjoyed that. When I was at Union School as a 5th and 6th grade principal, teachers came to me and said, you know, we study Canada, and we just was wondering how we could, incorporate and make that a better curriculum. And the idea came up of taking the 6th graders to Toronto. As Steve said, we've had COVID the last 2 years, but we're almost have done that for 40 years straight, for just maybe 2 years because of COVID. But that was an exciting trip that we started. I don't know, I can't imagine how people liked getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, getting to the school and leave at 4:30 in the morning, and we got back at midnight or 1 o'clock on Friday night. It was a 2-day excursion, but it's continued, and many students have always said, yeah, we really enjoyed that. The first year was a fiasco. We went with a travel company, and we just said, the only thing I want is the students on the first 2 floors. When we got to Toronto, we had students on 20 different floors. Talk about delivering pizza, it took us all night. The next year, the staff said, we've got to do better, so we hired a different travel company, and that travel company asked if the staff would go with me to Toronto, and they would pay our way to make our own curriculum, our own tours, and what we felt was most important. And over the next 5 years, the 6th grade staff, that's what is so great. I mean, they worked so hard to make that Toronto trip the best for kids. So that's why that's something that means a lot to me, because it was a staff-generated and staff-supported. So I appreciate that. Counselors. As I said, I worked with a lot of different people. At one point, they talked about doing away with the counselors or downsizing the counseling staff. I fought hard for counselors because I saw what counselors did. There were a lot of things that a lot of parents, a lot of people, a lot of times didn't know what counselors did, but they had an impact on a lot of students. And because of that, in 2004, the Michigan Association of Student Councils, or Michigan Association of Counselors, awarded me Advocate of the Year for my support of the counselors, and that wouldn't have happened if all the counselors hadn't written a letter of support. So I appreciate the counselors in the school system. I worked a lot with special education doing IEPs. A very good staff, very talented teachers. Secretaries. A lot of times we don't realize the importance of secretaries in the buildings, but they're the first ones that see people when they come through the doors. I was fortunate to have many good secretaries. I was at the middle school, Jill Maris. At Union School, Marilyn Martin. When I was central office, Judy Hreigers, Maddie Egan, Shar Sisik, and Kay Raymond at the high school. They were valuable people to work with, and I certainly enjoy everything that they help do for me. Custodians, Lou Kollaroff, Kenny Feldkamp, Keith Schmidt, and Gordy Boucher. These guys took pride in the schools and kept the schools clean, and anytime I needed anything done, they were always there to help. Bus drivers, you don't think I wouldn't work with bus drivers? When I was at high school, a lot of times bus drivers would come in if they had a discipline problem and say, Terry, I need you out on the bus. I still remember this one bus driver came in with students and said, Terry, you need to do something with a student. I said, well, what's the problem? Well, yesterday he wouldn't sit in the seat, so I told him he had to write 500 times, I will stay in my seat. You know what he did? He wrote it 10 times and then Xeroxed the rest of them. So the bus driver wanted me to handle that situation. Cafeteria staff. As assistant principals, you spend a lot of time in the cafeteria working with students. You really get to know the students. And we always had friendly cafeteria staff. I still remember Phyllis White, Ann Reese, a lot of people that worked in the cafeteria. They were always friendly and always happy to work with the kids. We had some of the best band music orchestra programs in the state. We had some of the best athletic programs. I was fortunate, even while I was working, coach football 1 year at the middle school, and when I was Dexter, I coached football for 7 years. I was asked when the band went to Brecon, Wales, which was our sister city, if I would be interested in chaperoning. It was an exciting trip, and I think Dave was in charge of that trip. We had a great time in Brecon and Wales. The only problem I ended up was I had 5 boys I was responsible for, and one day in England, I said, you can go out in half an hour and meet me back here. And they came back, and they all had their ears pierced. Try to explain that to parents. Number 2, administrators. We have had some of the best. I've worked with some of the best administrators, and I appreciate everything they have done. 2 of my mentors were Joe Schwartz at the middle school and Paul Teeble at the high school. Now, the only reason Paul Teeble was a great friend, a great mentor, but I need to tell you how he became a mentor. I had gone back to the middle school as 6th grade principal. Paul needed an assistant principal at the high school. I wasn't even interested in it. I liked being back at the middle school. Friday night, Paul calls and says, can I come over and see you and Diana? I said, sure. He came over, he says, we interviewed 10 candidates today for assistant principal, and we didn't like any of them. We would like you to come to the high school and be assistant principal. I said, when do you have to know? By tomorrow morning. So I thought about it, called Paul, said, nope, I want to stay at the middle school. You sure? Yep, stay in middle school. Monday morning, I'm walking, going down to the high school. Clem Corona comes out. Clem says, what, you don't want to work with me? Why do you think that? Well, you didn't take the job. And then Paul said, you know, one of the things I want you to come to high school for is we need a student council. We don't have a student council. And I had done a lot of work with student council, so I finally changed my mind that Monday afternoon and said I would go to the high school as an assistant principal. That was probably, again, another great decision because Paul was a great mentor and Clem was a great mentor. I still remember the very first day I was at the high school. I couldn't believe it was day 1. I'm sitting in my office. Clem's office is just in front of mine. Teacher sends a student down, a girl. I just come in the office and says, what do you come down here for? She said, I didn't have a pencil. Okay, why didn't you have a pencil? She stood up and started yelling at me and swearing at me, and Clem's just standing there laughing, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I supposed to do? So that was my first day at the high school, and I thought, maybe I shouldn't have come to the high school, but no. So I respect and was glad that I got to work with Clem Corona. The lady that replaced me at the middle school assistant principal, her name was Ellen Ewing. Probably one of the greatest opportunities was to work with Ellen when she was superintendent and to work with Barb Saxton. I felt that was a very strong team at central office and really had a good time together and did a lot of initiatives for the district. I appreciated school board support, had a lot of different school board members over the years. I still remember, I don't know if some of you ever remember Woody Merchant. When I was principal at Union School, she called me, she says, Terry, and this was October, she said, I hadn't been there that long. She says, I hear you have a bee problem on the playground. I said, yes. She said, are you going to take care of it? I said, yeah, it's on my list for December. She realized that I had a little humor involved there also. And I also want to pay tribute to Sandy Nadig. Sandy Nadig was on the school board, and I had the opportunity to do some presentations with her on behalf of the Saline School District. So, again, I appreciate everything Sandy did for the school district. Number 3, students. The whole reason I got into education was students. I was a student council advisor for 25 years. And I always asked the physicians, you know, if I was going to be hired, could I still be a student council advisor? I like working with students, talking about leadership, because I always promoted being involved in the community and community service. I was able in Saline to take the officers to National Association of Student Council conferences in Myrtle Beach and Chicago and make sure they got a lot of extra training. One of the things I'm proud of is many of the students that I've had in the past at Student Council have gone on to either become involved in school boards, city councils, and even our mayor of Saline, Brian Morrow. I think a lot of people get involved in the community, and I always applaud them for what they do. I was asked to be the first director of the middle level leadership camp in eastern Michigan, so I did that for the first 2 years, where we brought kids in for a week for leadership in the summer. I really enjoyed doing that. Also, I was responsible working with the superintendent to write the first student assistance policy. When I was at the high school, we had a few accidents that were alcohol related, so we developed a student assistance policy about alcohol and drugs to help students and support students, and so I'm proud of the policy that we were able to put together to help students at Saline. The only thing about being a student council advisor that was hard was over the years I ended up chaperoning 106 dances. That's not always that fun, especially middle school dances, because I find that a lot of times the boys go there and girls go there and boys hang out and girls hang out. Well, when a girl goes ask a boy to dance and he says no, then I've got girls in the bathroom crying. What am I supposed to do? So I've enjoyed working with students. That's been a very important part of my career. 4, friendships, challenges, and fun that I've had working in Saline. I found that Saline, it's like a family. You work together. I've been proud of working with the teachers, staff. I did a lot of different things. I was able to write, while I was assistant superintendent, over $175,000 worth of grants for the district. I started the 8th grade dinner at the middle school. At the end of the year, the 8th graders went to Weber's. We did that for probably, I think they did it for about 7 years. It finally sort of got out of control because we had parents letting their kids come to the school in helicopters and with their girlfriends, and by that point we figured that was too much. So, but the 8th grade dinner was a good experience for the kids. They went to Weber's, they had a dinner, they had a speaker, they had dancing, and it was also a learning experience. I still remember this 8th grade boy saying, "Mr. Walters, what's all this silverware for? What do we do with it?" So, I mean, they didn't realize, with all the forks and spoons, they weren't aware what they were supposed to do. I worked with staff when I came as to be the associate superintendent. United Way said our funding was down there, so I worked with staff to increase the teachers participating in United Way and also participating in the foundation. So I had a contest between all the buildings, and whatever building had the highest percentage of participants, central office would come over and cook them lunch, hot dogs and hamburgers. So we did that pretty much every year I was here, and it was fun, a fun activity to get staff involved. Under curriculum development, I worked with staff on the curriculum to make changes, look at the learning standards, look at what learning outcomes we needed to improve on, and we continued that year, that couple years in the county. We had the highest NEET scores in the county. I was proud of the staff for the work they did for curriculum improvement. I know at one curriculum area in K through 6 math, we picked a curriculum, and for a couple years it wasn't working out. We didn't get the training we needed, so the teacher said we need to change. We changed to everyday math, and when we changed to everyday math, teachers really enjoyed the program. We got a lot of training, and our scores went up almost off the charts in terms of our elementary math scores, so I appreciate what goes there. I supported listening to staff and the staff suggestions, but staff supported me also. In 1997, my wife, Diana, was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome. She spent 345 days in the hospital, both the hospital and rehab. Why I say that I appreciate the staff. Staff stepped forward. They set up a visitation schedule and had teachers volunteered to go up and sit with her many times when I couldn't be there. They did that on their own. When she came out of rehab, she had lost a lot of weight. Marlene Weintraub and Ted Vonnegut went out and bought her a whole new wardrobe of clothes. On February 25th, 2004, she passed away. The staff of Saline were very gracious in coming to the funeral home. I've received over 300 sympathy cards, and most of them were from staff. After that, the word got out. People found out that I did not know how to cook. Staff invited me out for dinner. Staff invited me to their homes for dinner. Again, this staff here in Saline was a family. Staff didn't stop there. In 2005, a teacher, Saline teacher, introduced to me my present wife, Becky. Yeah, I put the needs of the students and families first. It was hard for me to retire. For 2 years after I retired in 2005, I substituted in Saline. It was then that I realized that all my teaching had been in middle school and high school, that elementary teachers have it rough. I was asked in February to come and substitute in a second grade classroom. I'd never taught in an elementary classroom. When it was time to go out for recess, I didn't realize kids needed help with their boots and their snowsuits. By the time I got all my class in their boots and snow boots, recess was over. I then worked for Phillips Travel for 10 years, and that still gave me the opportunity to take students from Saline on the Toronto trip as a tour director. I really appreciated that. I spent 12 years, thanks to Cheryl Heff, working at what I still do, work at Weber Bliss as a docent and a schoolmaster. I want to pay special tribute now to two teachers that I worked with that nominated me for this award, Olivia Fanning and Ruth Lockwood. They are very special to me. They have done many things for students. One of the things that I liked about my job most was going to classrooms and see the learning environment and teaching environment. I'll have to say that Ruth and Olivia were some top teachers that I'm glad we hired. They are positive, they're dedicated, and were committed to the Saline schools. So I appreciate everything they did in their classrooms. To show you how committed they were to students, they went on the Toronto trip when I was a tour director. We tried to save money, so we stayed at Victoria University in the dormitories. The two of them came to me first night and said, "Terry, we got a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" There happened to be graduate students staying in the basement. We're a little afraid about the safety of our kids. I said, "Do you have a solution?" "Yeah. We've got a couch in front of the doors and we want you to sit there all night." And I did it. So, again, that shows you how much they are committed to their students. I want to thank my family. I have family. My son, Charles, and wife, Tanya. Granddaughters, Erica and Liana came from Rio Rancho, New Mexico. My brothers, Jeff, Chuck, and Denny, and my nephew, Dustin. My other sons, in-laws, Phyllis and Pat. I appreciate you coming here to support me tonight. Saline Schools is an amazing place to work, and I'm glad I was been able to contribute to the Saline Schools. I want to close with a quote from Helen Keller. "By myself, I can do little, but together we can do much." Thank you, Foundation, for this recognition.
Thank you, Terry. Dave Wolter, a music teacher in Saline from 1964 to 2000, Dave taught all levels of band, from song flute in grade 4 through high school. Most notably, Dave started a student-adult community big band and named it the Saline Big Band, which he directed and ran for 42 years. The Saline Big Band played several hundred performances around the state and traveled 3 times to Brecon, Wales. During the height of Dave's career, there were 4 high school bands, 4 high school orchestras, 6 high school choirs at the high school, and 900 of 1,500 high school students were in daytime school program. It's my pleasure to introduce to you distinguished educator Dave Wolter.
Thank you. we've been here quite a while. If I were to tell you the names of everybody that made my job possible, you'd be here till next week sometime. I would like to say that I really thank Art Catterjohn up there in the sky for inviting me to come and interview, and I spoke to him, and I thank him, thank you, Art, for taking me down to meet the new superintendent. And I thank Harold Hintz when 3 years later I said to Harold, I've got a hearing problem and I'm going to have to resign. It's too late in the year to resign and find a new band director. I think I should resign a year from now and we'll go find a new high school band director. And he said, well, let's think about that. And about 2 weeks later, Harold came back and said, Dave, he said, could you think about trying to work with the younger students? Maybe that wouldn't hurt your hearing aid and hearing problem, and maybe you could handle that better and run the music program. I said, well, let's try it for a year. And I retired 34 years later. So anyway, thank you to so many people. But the most important person really to thank is my wife, Jean, and my children. Out there someplace, son Mark and daughter Cindy and daughter Amy, who withstood the fact that I thought that going to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning and getting up at 6 and going to work was what everybody did. And I did that for many years, and somehow they survived my absence, and I'm very proud of them, and thank you for being here with me tonight. And I also have to take time to thank Linda Livingstone and Janet Livingstone Carson for organizing a get-together with band members that Mac and I had taught for the afternoon before the Saline annual reunion dinner. And they filled that band room with, about 70 people. And I had the opportunity to have 70 students stand up and at one point or other tell me how important music was to them and how important I was to them, and that was wonderful. I see a few gray hairs out there, but most of you may not really know what Saline looked like in 1964. It was a small town. There wasn't much here. We still had a railroad track that came through town, and it was really a very open building. In fact, when I drove here to interview, I drove up to the building, and it was the day after the high school graduation. And the high school, you call that Liberty School now, the high school was totally open. I just walked into the building, walked around, I found the band room, walked into the open band room, saw the Ampex tape recorder, had a tape, put it on the Ampex and turned up the sound, and had my brass sextet that I had organized in college playing. How many times can you just walk into a building here in Saline now? It doesn't, no, sorry, it doesn't happen. But I also came into a town with enthusiastic parents and enthusiastic music students, and it was wonderful. Now, I have notes and notes and notes about who I was, and I'm not going to bother with that. And I will talk about the fact that I had a wonderful principal, Paul Tebow. He'd say, I don't know much about that, but he'd say, go ahead and try it when I come up with some funny idea. And then I had Clem Corona, and by golly, the students in Saline walked tall and straight around there because Clem Corona was around, and there was something to pay if you got out of line. And then, of course, I came into a building, middle school, with people like Tim and Kathy Corelli, and those two had hundreds in their, what do you call it, track program, after school, middle school, the hundreds of kids. And how did they run that program? It wasn't, you have to win. It was, your goal is to get better every week, and I love that. And then, of course, I had Dave Johnson when I said, the school wants, we have a new high school, now you call it the middle school. We have a new high school, and we have a beautiful stage, and we want to start a school music program, or a musical program. And I said, Dave, I understand you're involved in theater and that type. He said, yes. I said, would you do it? He not only did it, he organized it and ran it for 5 years and started a wonderful, wonderful program. And then, of course, elementary teachers. I could go on and name teacher after teacher, but wonderful teachers like Jan Schneerly. She was able to understand that my son's genius was very difficult to exist in an ordinary school room, and she got him functioning as a student, and it was wonderful. And then, of course, people talk about, quote, my music program, and it wasn't my music program. I was surrounded by people like Joan Starkey, Doris Kroshauer, Mac Danforth, later Martha Frosseth, Bob Phillips, John Mason. Of course, the program had to succeed and had to be wonderful. And ordinarily, I would like to say I tried to stay in the background, and so that people don't really know what I'm up to and I can do things. And I had bought a yellow van for my big band to carry equipment. And one weekend, two of the members said, can we borrow we got a project, we want to borrow the van. I said, go ahead and take it, I'm not using it. And they took it and they brought it back 2 days later, and it was painted, and it was now the Dave Wolter band van. And so it was hard to be unrecognized after that point. And in fact, it's amazing how many people, when I drive up in some car here in Saline and it's not the band van, they say, where's your band van? So anyway, I'm kind of a projects person, and I'm just going to say, I came to Saline, and my project was to take a band program and turn it into a program with a band, an orchestra, and choirs. That's what I experienced in high school, and I thought that's what I wanted to experience here in Saline. And as you've already heard, it worked out wonderfully. I was very, very lucky. As far as projects, no. And I will say that when I was in high school, I was in a car with a friend driving down the road, and I spotted this beautiful little girl walking down the road, and I said to Phil, I said, you know, I'm going to ask her for a date. And Phil said, she's too pretty for you, Bugs. That was my high school nickname. She's too pretty for you. Little did he realize that a couple years later, I would start a 64-year project. My wife, Jean, stayed with me for 64 years through all that. And thank you. And I'd like to say that there are people that have affected me and helped me be the kind of person that I think I would like to be. And one of those is Confucius. And I'm just so impressed by this man who could say these things and shape the lives of millions of Chinese people, and I think that's wonderful. Another person who has shaped lives is Jesus, and I like the words of Jesus. Another man that has shaped my life and been important to me was Thomas Jefferson. And you know about Thomas, of course, but I like the fact that he built a beautiful house, helped design it, and I built a very nice house. Not as nice as his, of course. And he was also an inventor. He was a book collector. I love to collect books. He gave his first 5,000 books to the nation's library when the library burned down. And so he boxed up his 5,000 books and sent them off to Washington, D.C. to restart the library. he had more than that when he died. Another person that's been very important to me in his philosophy is Kurt Vonnegut. His most recent book is How to Behave Decently. And Kurt Vonnegut and Thomas Jefferson, by the way, both adored Jesus, and Thomas Jefferson actually wrote a whole revised first, what do you call it? The new part of the Bible. Yes, you all know what that is. And he revised it to emphasize all the good things that Jesus said. But I'd like to end my little thank you to all of you and people here on the stage that are wonderful. I'd like to just end it with a quote from Kurt Vonnegut. And excuse me, but I'm going to quote him word for word. Kurt said, "God damn it, be kind."
Thank you, Dave. You know, in Saline area schools, we talk a lot about legacy, and tonight we do have two outstanding music educators. We talk about their legacy. We're still one of the only school districts in Michigan that still offers fifth grade music every day to all our students. And that's a product of some of the people up here. Next, I'd like to introduce Amy Yacoula, a 1994 Saline High School graduate. Amy matriculated to Clemson University, where she received a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics teaching. She currently serves the Atlantic Coast Conference as the Deputy Commissioner and Chief of External Affairs, which includes communications, public relations, marketing, and advanced social and digital media. In 2016, Amy was named to the Sports Business Journal's 40 Under 40 class. Please join me in welcoming distinguished alumni Amy Yacoula to the Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much. I step up to the podium tonight, and I'm keenly aware that I'm probably the one thing standing between us and the dessert reception. So first and foremost, I want to recognize my fellow inductees. It's a privilege to be a part of this incredible induction class. Congratulations. I'd also like to thank the entire Saline Area Schools Foundation and the individuals that have tirelessly worked on this weekend's event. This is an incredible honor and one that's extremely humbling. To be included on a list with many of the teachers, administrators, and coaches that prepared, challenged, and supported me during my formative years is beyond surreal. To have spent my first 18 years growing up in Saline provided me with the foundation to understand the importance of education and community. It also allowed me the opportunity to be engaged in many extracurricular activities, including athletics, music, and nationally recognized clubs, all equipping me with key life qualities. To say I've been blessed would be an understatement. If we had another 30 minutes, don't freak out, I'm not going to do it, I'd start listing off all the names of my teachers, coaches, administrators, and more. But again, I know I'm standing between us and dessert. Plus, you all know who you are, and I'm just one of the many lives you've greatly enhanced during your extremely meaningful careers. There are 15 people here tonight that I do want to individually recognize. I'll start with the Tebows, my Uncle Paul and Aunt Nancy, who are my godparents, and Mr. Corona. After working in college athletics for 20 plus years, it's crystal clear that I enjoyed learning from two of the very best administrators, and that sometimes the best defense is a solid offense. And now for my family, my sister Kelly and Nick, my brother Scott, sister-in-law Jill, and their 3 kids, Hayden, Bethy, and Jack. My husband Scott, and our 2 kids, Allender and Holden, and of course my parents, John and Elizabeth Moore. Without question, they share in this incredible honor, although my mom will always be the true Saline Hall of Famer in our family. My family makes me better every day and puts up with me every day, and there's no group of people I love and respect more. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to share a few remarks. Congratulations once again to my fellow 2022 honorees, and cheers to Saline for what it means in each of our respective lives and for bringing us together to celebrate tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Friends and supporters of Saline Area Schools and the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, please join me in giving all these outstanding individuals one last round of applause. Plaques honoring our Hall of Fame inductees will be permanently displayed in the main corridor of Saline High School. The Alumni Committee is absolutely thrilled with the 9th Hall of Fame classes. Just as these individuals help from the foundation that Saline Area Schools continues to build upon, they continue to form the foundation that the Hall of Fame will be built upon. In the coming months, we will begin accepting nominations for the next Hall of Fame class. We now have 52 excellent examples of the quality of individual we are looking for. Before I turn it over to Stacy, I was talking earlier about legacy, and I want to make sure we thank Cheryl Heft, who is one of the original directors of the foundation. She laid the foundation for the foundation. Thank you, Cheryl. Now I'd like to introduce Stacy Rumpsa, Executive Director of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, to conclude the event.
I'd like to thank all of the inductees, honorees. You guys did an amazing job tonight, and I really enjoyed hearing all of the stories, and it just makes me so proud of the Saline community and Saline education. So as we exit the auditorium tonight for dessert, I would like to ask that the Hall of Fame inductees report directly to the Hall of Fame display for some photos. So if you go straight out and to the right, that's where you will have photos taken. On behalf of the Foundation for Saline Area Schools, I'd like to congratulate the newly enshrined Hall of Fame members, and I thank you all for your attendance tonight and for all the family and friends that were able to come as well. So also for the honorees, we do have a little thank you gift bag, so please stop at the foundation table on your way out tonight to grab that. And please drive safely and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.